You're listening to Packers Talk Network.
You're listening to No Huddle Radio on the Packers Talk Radio Network, your home for in-depth and thoughtful Packers analysis. I'm your host, Gil Martin. My co-host is my good friend, Sean Tian. In addition to this show, I write for the PackersPost.com and Cheesehead TV. Sean was a TV sportscaster in Minnesota. We're here to talk Packers because you're all here for one thing, and that's a love for Green Bay football. Sean, how we doing?
We're doing, man. Hey, a few days away from the Super Bowl. Unfortunately, the Packers aren't there. But if you want to see the Packers in action coming up next season, Wisconsin's own Ticket King, they've got you covered. Our show is sponsored by Ticket King. For more than 30 years, they've been providing Packers tickets to Packer fans, as well as Bucks, Brewers, and Summerfest tickets. Find them on the web at theticketking.com. That's theticketking.com, or visit their locations in Green Bay and Milwaukee. And you can watch every episode of No Huddle Radio and Packers Talk Network on YouTube. Go to YouTube, type Packers Talk Network in the search bar. Click on the PackersTalk.com link with the green background and the yellow goalpost. Click on the bell, subscribe, turn notifications on. We chat about a lot of stuff, even during the season, during the off season. And unfortunately, the Packers a few weeks ago got a head start in the off season, but Brian Gutekunst spoke to the media for the first time since the season ended. The newly extended Brian Gutekunst, he received an extension, as well as head coach Matt LaFleur. Kind of a bit controversial, maybe, with the extensions. People thought Gutekunst was probably in good standing and better standing after the Micah Parsons trade. Matt LaFleur, maybe not so much, but the things aren't really going to be changing. They're going to be status quo for the time being. But, Gil, a lot of stuff that Brian Gutekunst chatted about during his presser on Wednesday. And I think something that we've been talking about the last few weeks, because there's been a lot of coaching news and movement and everything like that, with Jeff Hafley leaving for Miami and Matt LaFleur getting the extension. Will he get fired? Will he not get fired? He didn't get fired. He got an extension. And then also it came down to Rich Bisaccia. Special teams has been such a weakness for this team for forever. And Rich Bisaccia was supposed to be the special teams guru, and it just hasn't gotten any better. And Brian Gutekunst was asked about Rich Bisaccia. He said he has a lot of faith in him and the special teams, believes there's been a lot of investment and good return there. Said he thinks they've been better on special teams than they have been in a long time. So doesn't sound like Rich Bisaccia is going anywhere, Gil.
Yeah.
Is this insanity?
It's close. I mean, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And yeah, there was some improvement in some areas. I'm not going to say that special teams was a complete disaster, but overall, to me, it's just those same types of mistakes, unforced errors, I will call them, and fundamental flaws that just never seem to be corrected and cost the Packers at least 3 games that I could think of, maybe 4. And it was everything from, blocked field goals and extra points to untimely penalties to allowing big returns at the wrong time, not having the right number of players on the field, not having the right players on the field. I could go on, but I just don't see enough improvement from special teams since Rich Bisaccia arrived. And, you keep him at your own peril, I guess. I mean, yeah, maybe he's respected in the locker room, but the results have not been there. And that's the thing. And I have a trouble believing that Brian Gutekunst doesn't see it.
It's interesting because Brian Gutekunst did rave about Bisaccia and his special team staff and the culture that he brings. And I thought at a minimum, associate head coach, he needed to be stripped of that title at a minimum. And it doesn't sound like we don't know yet. Jonathan Gannon could have that title coming up into next year. We don't know for sure. They haven't finalized the coaching staff. There's still a lot of movement. Really, NFL coaching staffs do not get finalized until after Super Bowl Sunday.
Right.
Specifically in Seattle alone, they're going to have a new offensive coordinator because Clint Kubiak is supposedly going to be the Vegas Raiders' next head coach. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the same for every other coaching staff because they're waiting on every other team to see who's available, who's not available and such. But I think at a minimum that needs to be taken care of because the game management part of the Packers coaching staff has been very poor. It's really troubling though, Gil, where anytime anything good happens on special teams for the Packers, even a positive return of any positive return on a punt return or any decent return, a kick return, you just know it's like, oh, it's probably gonna be a flag. It's probably coming back. And 90% of the time, it feels like it does. And is that an execution problem? Is that a coaching problem? I don't know. But the Packers clearly think it's more of an execution issue than a coaching issue.
At a certain point, when there is, when the problem persists for a decade or more, I don't know. I mean, the personnel changes a lot faster than the coaches. So whether it's all a coaching problem or not, coaching has to be considered part of the problem. I think the front office bears some blame for the fact that they haven't always prioritized special teams, although they've done it a little more in recent years. But, I mean, there are just the Cleveland game, the Dallas game, the playoff loss against the Bears, the loss during the regular season against the Bears, where all you had to do was, field an onside kick where you have
Now, Gil, I'll hold up there real quick because that's not on Rich Bisaccia. It was blocked perfectly, and Romeo Doubs muffed it. That was an execution issue.
That is an execution issue, but it's symptomatic of the fact that the unit as a whole is just not getting the job done. And I'm not going to place the majority of the blame on Rich Bisaccia for that. I would place a lot more of the blame for Rich Bisaccia on having Luke Musgrave and Brant Banks lining up on your kick block field goal protection team. And, that's just a vulnerability. And the opposition saw that on film and they knew right away, we're attacking that spot. It's just the longest kick return that this team had all year was 36 yards. And the kick return unit was a lot better than the punt return unit, which was just bad. Mm-hmm. The problems just permeate the unit, with the exception of Daniel Whelan, who was just outstanding.
Yeah, Daniel Whelan is the one positive of the Rich Bisaccia time, where a punter that they found essentially kind of on the street. Nobody really knew about him. And that's a credit to Gutekunst, too, finding a punter like that and then Bisaccia developing a talent like Daniel Whelan. Daniel Whelan is probably going to be the punter in Green Bay, hopefully, for the next 10 years. He's that good. I mean, he is that special. You just hope – you thought Corey Bajorquez was going to be around a lot longer, but the thing is, during the wintertime, his leg died a little bit, and the punts weren't as good when the weather got a little colder. But Daniel Whelan is an outstanding punter. The big thing, though, is I feel like every year when you're building a roster, you're going into training camp, you have a pretty good idea who you're going to have in your 45 of your guys who are going to make this team. Then those final 8 spots, it comes down to, hey, do we need to add more depth, or do we need to value guys who can play special teams? And early in Bisaccia's time in Green Bay, they kept guys who were more valuable on special teams, like a Dallin Levitt. He comes to mind right away. A Tariq Carpenter, too. They haven't really done that the last few years. So you wonder if there was discussion between Gutekunst and the coaching staff being like, hey, we need to have a greater emphasis on having dudes on special teams.
I mean, they have brought in some guys on special teams. Nick
Niemann.
Niemann. Zane Anderson was brought in even Keyshawn Nixon was really brought in more for special teams in some ways, and then slot. But it just is so frustrating the way this is good. And then the other thing that I think you have to give Bisaccia some responsibility for is how the injury situation with Brandon McManus was handled.
Yeah.
And I'm sure McManus wasn't being 100% upfront with everybody saying, I feel great, when he probably did not feel great, or he was ready when he probably should have taken another week off. But players are always going to do that. And as the special teams coach, you've got to be on top of things like that. And maybe he was balling out in practice, and then just, when game time came, he just couldn't get the job done. But that's something that as a special teams guru you've got to be able to monitor and be on top of.
Yeah, it was a quad issue that Brandon McManus was dealing with in his kicking leg. That's kind of a big deal, but it is funny where it's the little experience that I've never played the NFL level, obviously, but dealing with quad and groin issues in the past, in my opinion, some days it feels great, and then others days it's just not working right. And so those soft tissue kind of areas are very finicky. But I'm with you though, where it was so mishandled. And I feel like if there's a question with that, especially with your kicker, especially with his right leg, you should have just held him out and let him heal. It just why even it was just, I think that was a situation that was managed so poorly. And was that on Matt LaFleur? Was that on Rich Bisaccia? Was it bad communication between Bisaccia and the medical staff? Was it? We don't know. But that was a big theme during that part of the season where it's like, hey, like we're not sure if he's healthy enough to kick or not, and he clearly wasn't for a good stretch of time.
Yeah, and you know they brought him back, then they held him out another game. It was just mishandled so badly, and again, I'm not blaming Bisaccia 100%, but that's his department. He's got to be on top of everything going on there. And it should have been handled better, in my opinion.
Yeah, so I think Packer fans are very much in unison where they don't really like that Rich Bisaccia is probably going to be back next year. And my guess is next season may be his last season. So they're just, you know what, maybe we don't can him and he just walks away after next year no matter what.
And look, I have nothing against Rich Bisaccia, the person. I think he comes across as a great guy. He's very well liked. He's respected for what he's accomplished over the course of his career. But the NFL is all about results, and the results just haven't been there.
I think I've seen Aaron Nagler tweet it a lot online, where it's not friends business, it's show business. That's the NFL. That's pro sports for you. It's as cutthroat as it gets. If you don't perform, if you don't do your job well, someone else is waiting in the wings always.
Yeah, as Jerry Glanville famously said, NFL stands for not for long when you do that. So, yeah.
But we're gonna have Rich Bisaccia just a little longer. And speaking of the roster construction, though, we're discussing, do they bring in more special teams aces next year? Brian Gutekunst talked about the roster and the flexibility he feels they may have this upcoming offseason and free agency. It feels like they have a lot of flexibility. The cornerback group obviously is an area that needs a lot of improvement. Gutekunst, though, he did say that they need more depth maybe at the cornerback group, not a wholesale change, but more depth. Said the Nate Hobbs and Aaron Banks signings weren't, they were a bit of a risk last year, but expects those guys and Rashawn Gary, everyone under contract essentially, to be back next year, but he's always evaluating the roster. Gil, with those guys, with other guys possibly, you know, what should the Packers, what are the major things the Packers need to do with the current roster right now? I feel like Gutekunst, him saying, oh yeah, we expect everyone under contract to be back. I feel like that's GM speak for, essentially being like, don't throw players under the bus and don't ding their value. But more than likely, those guys there's a better chance they could be on the move than not on the move.
Yeah, I mean, out of the three you mentioned, I think Aaron Banks is probably in the best position to stay, only because of how much turnover there potentially is along the offensive line. Mm-hmm. If Elton Jenkins is leaving, if Rasheed Walker is leaving, Sean Ryan's contract is up. He could be back. He may not be back. To get rid of a fourth offensive lineman this offseason who contributed in a big way, when offensive line is a unit that really needs continuity, I think that might be a little bit risky. I think Rashawn Gary is either going to be restructured or gone. I don't think there's any way he plays under his current contract.
He can't. He cannot.
He can't. And then the question becomes, realistically, whether he'll agree to a restructuring that probably would cost him money. And the answer may very well be no. Now, again, you talk about not throwing guys under the bus. If he tries to trade them, obviously you don't want to reduce their value. So he's not going to talk these guys down. And, you know, the other guy you mentioned was Hobbs. To me, The key is this, and it's a small sample size you have to work with. But if Hobbs can't play well on the boundary, if he's going to be boundary corner 3 or 4 on this roster, you can get someone for half the price, maybe even less than that, to do that job as, boundary CB 3 or 4 than to pay Hobbs what you have to pay him.
Yeah, I am with you where I think Aaron Banks his job is safe for next year, mainly because there are a lot of changes that could be happening on the O-line. I think there's a chance if Brian Gutekunst is talking about how they could have some flexibility in free agency, maybe there's a chance Elton Jenkins sticks around. I think he's a prime cut candidate, though, which is unfortunate. I love Elton Jenkins.
Yep.
If they do keep Elton Jenkins, I'd love to see him move back to guard and find a true center, possibly. I just think Elton is so good at the guard position. That is by far – he could play all across the O-line, but by far guard is his best spot. And I don't know, though, if you move him to left guard or right guard, whatever it may be, but there's a chance that he may have played his last snap as a Green Bay Packer. Rashawn Gary, obviously, his contract needs to be tweaked, or he's out of here too. He's a prime cut candidate as well. And yeah, I'm with you on Nate Hobbs too, where he could be one and done. He could very well be one and done. I know the Packers way, how they construct contracts where it's usually 1 to 2 years guaranteed, and then they can get out of it. Nate Hobbs' contract, I don't know the exact details, but I think there's wiggle room more so after next year than after this year. But that's something for the cap experts to really divulge and go into. I think the big thing, though, is you need some depth along the interior D-line. You saw the ramifications Devontae Wyatt's injury had on the team last year. And then a sneaky need, Gil. I wouldn't be surprised if they I don't know who's available at the tight end position. Tight end's a sneaky need. Tucker Kraft's coming off an ACL tear. You don't have a lot of depth behind that, too. And you got a lot of guys who probably won't be back after next season. Luke Musgrave, mostly. Tight end's kind of a sneaky need where they could possibly use a boost, especially how many 2 tight end packages the Packers love to run.
Yeah, I mean, Luke Musgrave's entering the last year of his contract, probably not signing a second deal unless he really shows something this year. John Fitzpatrick is injured, probably won't be ready to start the season. Yeah. You start going down that list, and depth is a need, especially if Tucker Kraft is not ready to start the season in week 1, which I hope is not the case, but you got to take it one step at a time. I think that is a sneaky need. And I think cornerback is a bigger need than what Gutekunst let on. Now, maybe he's trying to downplay it.
Specifically, boundary cornerback.
Yes.
Boundary.
I think they have amazing depth at slot. I mean, Bullard, Nixon, and Hobbs are all better in the slot than they are on the boundary, even though Nixon would never admit that. But, I mean, to me, Nixon is an adequate CB2, but if he's your number 1 cornerback, unless your pass rush is elite, eventually he will be exposed.
Yeah, that's where the cornerback, boundary cornerback, and interior D-line and tight end. And then if you find an offensive lineman with good value, doesn't hurt to always add to that room, to stockpile guys in that room. But there's a reason those guys get paid a lot of money. They get paid a lot of money. The good old linemen do not last on the market very long. Usually you're dealing with a reclamation project or a guy coming off injury if you're going to get a good value there for good depth specifically. But it's going to be interesting to see how that all shapes up. But Brian Gutekunst did say he is open to adding some veterans to this team. The Packers now have been the youngest team in the NFL in each of the last 3 seasons by average age. If you were to add a veteran or two, what position would you like to see them target a veteran at?
I could see a veteran at either defensive tackle or cornerback. I could see a veteran offensive lineman, particularly on the interior, maybe a center, maybe a guard. A veteran backup tight end, a solid veteran backup tight end, not someone you're going to pay a lot of money to, but someone who's at least reliable. And then backup quarterback. I don't know if, how do you fill that need? Because Malik Willis is almost certainly out. and going to find a chance, look for a chance to start somewhere else? Do you want to go with Desmond Ridder? Do you want to develop a raw guy? Usually that developmental guy's on the practice squad. But if something happens to Jordan Love, is there anyone who you think is ready to step in and help you at least not get blown out in a game or two if the injury is short term?
I was going to say, when the Packers added Desmond Ridder to the practice squad late in the year, that was a move for 2026.
Oh, yeah.
I think he's in a prime position to be the backup of Jordan Love, a veteran who has played, not played very well, but he has experience. And the thing is too, it's like what Malik Willis is going to get this offseason, he's going to get some big money. He's going to get some big money compared to what he was getting paid before. Jordan Love obviously got a lot better. There are going to be quarterbacks who maybe are looking to improve or looking to save their careers. And Green Bay is probably going to be near the top of the list where it's like, okay, I can work with Matt LaFleur. Now, Sean Mannion, who knows? He was probably a big part of that too. And now he's in Philly for good reason as the offensive coordinator.
Right.
But I could work with Matt LaFleur and I could possibly save my career and get my career back on track. I mean, Malik Willis is going to get paid. I wouldn't be surprised if he got $25 million a year on average. Now, the guarantees, everything's in the guarantees, but I bet he gets $25 million a year because, yeah, it's a pretty penny, but guess what? It's a pretty cheap deal for a starting quarterback in the NFL. So that's where I don't know necessarily a veteran, but Desmond Ridder, I think makes sense that they keep in-house at least to compete in training camp coming up this summer.
It'll be interesting. It'll be very interesting to see how they handle it. And, yeah, I expect they'll draft a quarterback on day 3, most likely.
Yo, for sure. They got it. And Gutekunst always talked about where it's like we always want to try to fill that quarterback room. We always want to try to get new guys in there. Yeah. But speaking of the tight end spot, though, Brian Gutekunst did talk about Tucker Kraft a little bit. Tucker Kraft just wrapped up year 3. A season that he was on pace for a monster season. He had 32 catches and 489 yards through 8 games last year. And if you don't count the 8th game where he tore his ACL against Carolina, he was on pace for a big season, Gil. He was on pace to break many Packer tight end records. He was on pace for about 73 catches, more than 1,100 yards, and 15 touchdowns. He was going to smash all the Packer tight end records this year if he didn't tear his ACL, if he kept up with the pace that he was at. Brian Gutekunst did say they have been in touch with Tucker Kraft's representation, let them know they want him to be a Packer long-term. Gil, the big question here is it worth extending Tucker Kraft coming off an ACL tear? And what are you willing to pay Tucker Kraft coming off an ACL tear?
I would definitely explore extending him, giving him another contract, but I would try to structure it in a way that if his game does not recover from this injury, there's an out that the Packers could exercise. And Russ Ball, who was also extended, by the way, along with Gutekunst and LaFleur, he's pretty good at structuring these contracts to give the team an out if they want to do it. So
yeah.
I would definitely extend him because, A, he is that good. The numbers as to what the offense did when he was in the lineup versus when he wasn't in the lineup were noticeably better with him in it. And in the NFL, the price just goes up. So if you snooze, you lose. If you wait until, let's say, October of 2026, when you say, okay, we know the guy's healthy and he's playing up to or very close to where he left off last year, the price of re-signing him goes up.
And Gil, I'm going to just talk about real quick the highest paid tight ends in football. Just a little research. George Kittle's highest paid at $19.1 million per year from San Francisco. Arizona's Trey McBride is second at $19 million a year. Travis Kelce, who's sounds like he's probably going to retire. I mean, he's about to marry Taylor Swift this summer. $17 million a year on average. TJ Hockenson from Minnesota, $16.5 million per year. David Njoku from the Browns, $13.7 million per year. Mark Andrews from Baltimore, $13.1 million a year. Jake Ferguson from Dallas, $12.5 million a year. Chicago's Cole Kmet, $12.5 million a year. I gotta think he's a cut candidate for sure. With Colston Loveland there. Pat Freiermuth from Pittsburgh, $12.1 million a year. Jonnu Smith, also from Pittsburgh, $12.1 million a year. given those numbers, Gil, real quick, if Tucker Kraft, what are you willing to offer him right now, even while he's recovering from the ACL tear? Because honestly, my opinion, I think they should wait until he gets to camp, see him in person, see how he's doing. Because Dave Bakhtiari never recovered after his ACL tear. Now, granted, he signed the extension before he tore his ACL New Year's Eve 2020, but he wasn't the same after that. Nobody has a crystal ball. Nobody saw that coming. But knowing that Tucker Kraft's coming off an ACL tear of his own, what are you willing to offer him right now?
Again, the structuring of the deal is key. I'm willing to give him, 14 and a half, 15 and a half million a year, as long as we can get out of it after 1 year, if necessary. And I mean, to me, if you wait until, is he going to be able to participate in OTAs at all? What is his projected, what is 10 months after his injury? It would be 9-10 months would be August, September, right?
Yep. Yeah, just about.
But you're not going to see him at OTAs most likely, other than walkthroughs or working out on the side.
Yeah.
I am concerned that the price just goes up if you wait. And Bakhtiari, which is a very good example, but those were complications where he never really recovered and had swelling and, all kinds of issues. It happens, but it doesn't happen often statistically, where I'd be willing to say for 1 year, give him the 15 million, the signing bonus, whatever it is, knowing that we can get out of it if it blows up in our face.
Honestly, do a similar thing like Christian Watson, like they did with Christian Watson, where it's like, hey, we're going to pay you a 1 year extension with this much money right now so you don't rush back from your ACL recovery. Yeah. And Christian Watson looks awesome. He looked the best he has looked in a Packer uniform after coming off of his ACL tear. That is that's the positive. Like, that's the positive. Where it's like, yeah, everyone's like, oh, well, Dave Bakhtiari never was the same player and he never was able to play again, really. It's like, well, Christian Watson looks unbelievable. Yeah. He looks unbelievable. So that just goes to show where it's like it's two separate cases, but two totally different outcomes after just really nasty injury. With Tucker Kraft, I would say if you can agree to a contract with him for anything less, 12 million or less per year right now, you do it. You do it. You do it right now.
But he wouldn't do it, I don't think.
Well, I don't think he'd take that. But no, I think 14 million a year seems right. But I'm willing to pay him as much as Minnesota's paying TJ Hawkinson. Yep. But I'm with you there too, where the structure of the deal makes the most sense, just to make sure that he's in the clear and there's an out in case he never fully recovers the right way.
Yeah, it's funny because I was thinking when you went through that list, I was like, Hawkinson is probably the best comp as far as the level of where to put him. So interesting that we're both on the same page there.
And I got to think his representation thinks the same thing. If anything, I think Tucker Kraft could possibly command more because that guy is just so important. He is so important to that Packer offense in the run game, in the passing game. He is so good with the ball in his hands. He's so good at the amount of tackles he breaks. I've always wanted a tight end in Green Bay, Gil, that could shed the first tackler.
Yep.
And he does that consistently. He does that time and time and time again. I don't want to see this guy go anywhere anytime soon.
No, he's a fan favorite. He's great in the locker room. He's become a leader in that locker room, according to a lot of quotes that I've seen. And I think it would be a big mistake to let him go.
He's a football player, man. Hey, I held him in my arms. He Lambo left into my arms, man. I high-fived him. We made eye contact. I'm a fan for life for sure.
There you go.
I'm hoping things go very well throughout the recovery process for Tucker Kraft for sure. Now, we got a few minutes left, Gil. Let's run through some Super Bowl 60 prop bets. Obviously, big game coming up on Sunday over in Santa Clara, California, between the NFC champion Seattle Seahawks and the AFC champion New England Patriots. A rematch of Super Bowl, what was it? The 2014 Super Bowl, the Super Bowl the Packers probably should have been in, painfully. We don't have to go down that way. But let's just go over some prop bets real quick, and then we'll do some trivia. How's that sound?
All right, sounds good.
All right. So coin toss result, heads or tails, Gil?
Tails.
I'm going to say tails. Tails never fails. National anthem length, over or under 2 minutes?
Under 2 minutes.
I'm going to go over. I
Okay.
don't know who's singing the national anthem, but it always seems to go over.
Yeah, they always try to interpret it. It's
my guess for me, it's when the music starts and then when Brave is done.
Okay.
That's the start and finish for me, but who knows how the betting markets, how they usually determine that.
Right.
First touchdown score of the game will be a running back, a wide receiver, or any other position.
Wide receiver.
Okay, I'm going to say other. I think there's a chance it's going to be someone, random tight end, or maybe even a defensive player. Will there be a defensive or special teams touchdown?
Yes.
I think so as well. I think so as well.
These two teams, I think so.
Both teams have really good defenses, and then Seattle having Rashid Shaheed returning kicks. That guy's a freaking weapon in the return game.
He's a beast.
Highest scoring quarter, first, second, third, or fourth?
Fourth.
I hope it's the fourth. That'd make for an entertaining finish.
Yes.
I'm going to say the second quarter, though. I think we're going to see a lot of scores there. Number of songs performed at halftime, 5 or fewer, 6 to 8, 9 or more.
Well, what does a medley count as? Because there's always a medley.
I don't know, man. I mean, because there's songs within a medley. So I think, yeah.
Yeah, but okay, so if there's 3 songs within a medley, is that 1 or 3?
I would say that's 3.
All right, so what are my options now?
5 or fewer, 6 to 8, 9 or more. And it's usually about a 12 to 14 minute halftime show.
Yeah, I'll go 9 or more if medleys count as individual songs.
Yeah, I would go 9 or more as well. It just seems like you got a lot more wiggle room there for sure. I don't know. I don't listen to Bad Bunny. I don't know.
No, I don't either.
I don't know how mmany songs he has, but I'm going to learn on Sunday.
He has enough to be invited to perform at the Super Bowl, I guess. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Makes sense to me. Yeah, they're not putting you or I on stage. So,
no.
Gatorade shower color of the winning team, orange, blue, yellow, clear, or other?
I'm going orange.
I'm going to go other. It always seems like it's going to be purple. It always seems like it's going to be purple. So I'm going to go other. It's either purple or clear, but I'm going to go other.
Okay.
Super Bowl MVP position, QB or other?
QB.
Yeah, I would think QB, but I feel like this feels like a game where it's going to be someone other than the quarterback.
Okay.
I don't know, but we'll see. One of us is going to be right. It'll probably be you, Gil. First person thanked in the MVP speech: God, teammates, family, coaches, city, and fans.
I go God.
That's what I wrote too. It's always like, first of all, I want to thank God. It's got to be it has to be. And then who wins, Patriots or Seahawks? And what's your score prediction?
I am torn. I think the Seahawks will win, but I can't root for them. Not that I love the Patriots either. This is probably the matchup I least wanted to see from a teams I can root for standpoint, other than the Bears, who were not in the Final Four. But I'm going Seattle wins it 24-14.
I'm going Seattle and over the Patriots as well. Seattle is they're the favorites. I think for good reason. They played in the toughest division in football this year. I feel like they had a much tougher path to get here than the Patriots did. And I think Seattle wins 27-23. And it's funny because a few years ago, I had disdain for both these franchises, but both these teams are so different from the Pete Carroll and the Bill Belichick eras, where it's okay, I don't want this matchup, but I don't hate this matchup either. You know what I mean? Where it's I don't hate these teams the way I did 5 years ago, but I'm not a fan either. I mean, if this was Jim Zorn against Steve Grogan, I might have more interest in it. Ooh, that's a poll.
What was that?
That's a poll.
Yeah, I know. I mean, those were teams in the 70s that I liked. They were fun to watch, but recently, not a fan. So
yeah, it's interesting where it's I've been going back for it because I never discount Mike Vrabel's Mike Vrabel coach team.
No,
just he did so many good things in Tennessee, and he's doing a lot of good things right away in New England. So we'll see. I think it's gonna be a fascinating matchup. It should be a good game overall. Gil, before we do get into some trivia, What articles do you have online for Packers Post and Cheesehead TV?
Well, over at Packers Post, I finished my position-by-position grades for the season, so that's done. And also did a little grading of the 2024 draft class after 2 years. So kind of checking in and seeing each player got a grade based on what they did with the Packers. And for Cheesehead TV, talked about Bisaccia and, whether it was a mistake to retain him for the upcoming season.
We're probably going to go over player grades over the next few weeks after Super Bowl Sunday. I'm going to avoid reading your stuff just because I want to have my own train of thought. I don't want to I don't want Gills thinking to interfere by.
But you got to read it after we do the show.
We typically think on the same wavelength.
We are usually in the same ballpark. Yeah.
It's like, so you're probably gonna be like, oh, did you read my stuff? It's like, no, so that's just the way it goes. But how about some trivia?
Let's do it.
All right. Well, a lot of head coaching vacancies over the last few weeks have been filled in the NFL. The Vegas Raiders have yet to hire their next head coach officially, but reports are it'll be Seattle offensive coordinator Clint Kubiak landing that job after Super Bowl Sunday. The most recent NFL head coach hire was down in Arizona, where Cardinals hired LA Rams offensive coordinator Mike LaFleur. If that name sounds familiar to you Packer fans, it should. He's the younger brother of Packers head coach Matt LaFleur. Mike and Matt will be the third pair of brothers to simultaneously be NFL head coaches in the history of the league. Gil, who were the first two pairs of brothers to simultaneously be NFL head coaches? I think one pair of brothers is a slam dunk. You'll know that right away.
Weren't the Shula brothers coaching at the same time?
No, not at the same time. Nope.
Okay.
Not as head coaches.
Right. Okay.
There's a pair of brothers in the NFL right now. I mean, that should be a cakewalk for you, and for your alma mater too.
Well, the Harbaughs were yes. I mean that was the easier one. How far back? Give me a decade for the other one.
The 2010s, recently.
Fairly recent. Okay.
And this is kind of an easy one to forget because it was very brief. It was a very brief.
Was it an interim thing?
What's that?
Was one of them interim head coach only?
No, not necessarily. But both coaches, essentially, there was change with one of the head coaches early in his final season.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not going to get this one then. Go ahead.
So I'll reveal it in a second. Well, so you mentioned John and Jim Harbaugh, very notable, first brothers to be NFL head coaches at the very same time in the history of the league. John was in charge of the Ravens from 2007 through this past season. Jim was the 49ers head coach from 2010 through 2014. Their former teams played each other in the Super Bowl back in 2013 in New Orleans, and they are both currently head coaches in the NFL today. John's now with the Giants. Jim is with the Chargers. And the second set of brothers, Gil, John Gruden with the Raiders and Jay Gruden with Washington.
Yes.
John, now it comes back, right? It's right. John, he returned to the Raiders in 2018, was there through the early part of the 2021 season. Jay overlapped with John at the end of his time as the head coach in Washington for just under 1.5 seasons from 2018 through the early part of the 2019 season. Jay was the head coach in Washington from 2014 through the early part of the 2019 season. So, yeah, John and Jay Gruden, that's an easy one to forget because it was very, very brief. The Harbaughs are a slam dunk, but now the LaFleurs are third now on that list.
Now, didn't Don Shula coach against his son once? I think they did oppose each other in a game, if I recall correctly.
Maybe, but I don't think they were ever head coaches at the same, because you're talking about Mike Shula, correct?
Mike Shula, yeah.
Yeah, so that's father's son, though. This is
right,
brothers.
Correct.
This is specifically brothers.
Brothers, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I remember Mike Shula. My young self remembers Mike Shula only as the Alabama head coach, and it didn't work out very well.
No, did not go well at all. Did not go well.
I have a cousin who is a big Auburn fan, and he had shirts that said "Fear the Thumb" because Auburn beat them like 5 straight times. So it's like 4 or 5, So if you could get for those listening later and not watching on YouTube, just imagine 4 going to 5. Fear the Thumb.
There you go. All right. Well, that is going to do it for us today. We'll be right back here next week. Follow us on Twitter at Packers and at GB Packers Sean to stay up to date on all things Packers or to ask us questions. Or you could email us at gbpackerssean@gmail.com. Make sure you're subscribed to Packers Talk on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Big thanks to PackersTalk.com for powering our show. Thank you for listening. Until next time, go Pack Go.
Go Pack Go.